America's top cybersecurity expert on network television, CEO of Matrix Force, and #1 best-selling author of Streamlining Technology, Kevin Freeman.
Russ Singer talks to one cyber expert who called privacy the biggest issue of our time.
Kevin Freeman is here with us. You just put a book out about this.
All right, everyone, good morning, and thank you for joining. This morning, I'm going to share with you something that could literally help your bank account and save your business from catastrophic and unexpected risk. In the late 80s and early 90s, I helped Fortune 500 firms do dramatically more with automation. Snap-on tools process 30 locations throughout North America for payroll all in one day. Goodyear Tires increased their shipping of tires by 6,000 tires a day using barcoding. And Arco, Alaska saved $2 million a year in freight forwarding to the North Slope. Unfortunately, my young wife had a brain aneurysm and a massive stroke and had to learn to walk and talk and read and write again. So since I couldn't travel extensively, I came back to Oklahoma and looked around, and there was a huge need for traditional IT support. There were all kinds of outlaws with strange schemes and weird ideas. And even though the industry has matured a lot since then, most business leaders are evaluating IT like it's 1989. The biggest eye-opening thing for most people in the public is the dirty secret of the technology industry is that it's unregulated. On average, a doctor will take 12 years to become an MD. It takes 7 years on average for a CPA or a lawyer to not only learn, but also get a license, and then all of them have continuing education afterwards. This is not the case in IT. Anybody on a whim can start an IT firm, and even unemployed felons. There is no state licensing and no education required, so there's no really excuse and definitely understanding of why the majority of these go out of business and bankrupt in less than 5 years. The other thing that is not known to the public is there is no such thing as computer malpractice. There's legal malpractice, medical malpractice, financial malpractice. But since you are the person that's operating the tool, like driving a car, there is no computer malpractice or laws in place. Now, before we get rolling, for those of you who don't know me, I'll briefly introduce myself. My life has been defined by physical handicaps and various tragedies. Yet these hardships have been the secret to my success. Many people don't understand their current situation and become frustrated in business and in life, so I created the Delta Method and wrote the #1 bestseller, Change Your Game. I'm not a famous hacker, but my name is literally a trademark for the industry. I coined the term cyberist, and the Delta Method is patent pending as a process to streamline your technology for competitive advantage. The same concepts I'm sharing here today, you may have seen on TV and have been presented at Harvard, NASDAQ, and Microsoft. Only in America could a handicapped kid from small town Oklahoma become a globally recognized cybersecurity expert. Having made millions in my career, in approximately 45 minutes, I'm going to be giving away 2 free things to help your business. The Competitive Advantage Playbook, which is an international #1 bestseller, and a free Delta system plan for up to 5 folks. In over 30 years, no client, including regulated industries, have ever had a system plan. Unfortunately, our children today are rarely told classic fairy tales, either for politics or just simply modern culture. Yet, this fable is told every day across the world. As the legend goes, no one knows who came up with the name managed services. A person in a large firm in IT got tired of being a firefighter and always being under extreme pressure while the company was down fixing things. So they had this epiphany of they would try to get ahead of all the problems, and they went to management and they said, hey, if you just give me some budget, you guys focus on running the business and I'll take care of technology. Well, all of that is a big tech lie. Managed services is actually intellectual property, and there are trademarks by a handful of folks that you can look up at uspto.gov and verify. It's not about correcting break fix. It's about performance and results. You see, big tech and the big manufacturers had this looming problem. They were very good at recruiting partners to resell their products, but those partners had no value proposition of their own. And the more they recruited, they never seemed to really get a huge amount of momentum, because those partners would be gone generally in less than 5 years, and there was a huge churn, which wasn't good for the manufacturer, and it definitely wasn't good for customers. So they came up with this recurring revenue process so that some of these partners maybe could get a foothold and stay in business longer, and maybe they would develop their own value proposition. Unfortunately, that's not the case. According to the FTC, over 90% of so-called managed service providers simply resell product for commission and use billable hours for what they put in. So if you run across anyone that says they're a managed service provider and doesn't know where managed services actually came from, that's a huge red flag. If you have kids, they'll grow up to date and they will most likely have a type. My daughter had a definite type. It was usually a big guy with some facial hair. And since they were all clones, I just called them stormtroopers. Well, in the IT industry, since overwhelmingly everyone is simply reselling a product or doing billable hours, then they all sound exactly the same. No one also knows who this long retired MBA consultant with his briefcase and more than 50 miles out of town came up with these 3 questions that would hopefully help protect customers from shysters. And that was, how long you're in business. As a metric, try to figure out if they could really support you and take some of the risk out of it. How many staff do you have and how many customers? Well, how long in business is really a misnomer, because often you can buy a domain name or a business that's older than what your startup is for little or no money. The reality in this question too is you don't really care how long they're in business. You simply don't want somebody who's really high risk and can't do the work and really small. And you don't want some huge conglomerate that will just do whatever they want and not give you any kind of service. The 2 other questions go together, but they similarly don't make a lot of sense. For instance, Twitter had just 15 folks, but they had hundreds of millions of subscribers when they went public. And now they have huge revenues today with not a lot more staff. This is the same kind of situation if you have a lot of resellers, they may sell a lot of hardware and software to a lot of different customers, but that doesn't mean they provide support for them. So there are a lot better questions that we're going to cover. And also, these are covered up a lot by the gimmicks. The number one gimmick in our industry is we're number one, or we're the best. Like Simon Sinek and most industry pundits discuss and reveal, based upon what metric? No businesses or industries get together by geography or overall and decide what those metrics are. Do you have the most people? Do you have the biggest revenue? What is it that makes you number one? It's a false brag, and it's something that should be discounted. The Better Business Bureau has been widely disclaimed, and only really if a provider deals directly with consumers does it have any kind of relevance. However, it's a really common thing to put because it shows up for SEO. Very much the same thing for CRN 250 and Inc. 5000. You don't have to have a high revenue that you can prove, and you pay very little money to be listed as these awards or premium lists. Certified is also not a replacement for education, and it doesn't mean that there's any kind of license by state. Certified simply means for a particular product or service. And if it's a large manufacturer, it only means for a subset of that. So it's really important to understand the difference between specialists, which most people are today, and those who claim to do it all. That kind of goes together with Dun & Bradstreet is much like B&B. It gives for little or no money you can be listed, but it doesn't mean that your firm has any kind of credit worthiness. It can simply be found on the web. The smattering of logos is also one of the things that's meant to put you at ease that this is a big firm that does a lot of different things. Well, the reality is all these logos or partners just means that these are products that a provider sells. It doesn't even mean that they have a relationship with these providers or that they're certified. In that same vein, there's two other scams that are used widely that are difficult to verify, but easy to try to trick you. And that is the contrived testimonial. It's very easy to go out to LinkedIn, Facebook, your favorite social media, take a random picture of somebody, make up a name and a title, and then put whatever you want to say next to it. Very difficult to verify, and unless it's something with a video with somebody that you can actually look and listen and hear to, they're not really legitimate. The other big scam, since most providers don't have any value proposition and they don't have any way to get started with customers, is the free network assessment scam. The scam goes this way: all the things that you tell your employees not to do. Hey, give me your password so I can get into your systems, and I'm going to run this tool, and it's going to see if your current IT is doing their job or not. In truth, all of these tools require some kind of configuration, and you should never give away the password to someone you don't know. This scam is simply to practice at your expense The report is useless for you going forward. It's just designed to show that things are broken, and purposely so, because all of the vulnerability scan tools are meant to be pessimistic. So it's going to show you worst case and you're broken when you're really not. The sinister part of this is if you have no agreement, confidentiality, anything with these folks, then you are usually under their terms of agreement that's on their website. Many customers are shocked to find out that they give up their rights to any of their data and give authority to these unknown miscreants to actually steal their data. Now, along with all the gimmicks to put you at ease, you then come around to some really treacherous claims. The first and foremost that's bandied around the most today is we're experts, or we're cybersecurity experts, or we're XYZ industry experts, or GDP experts. If that is true, then they should have those publicly published for their risk exam each year. The second one is the obvious: you focus on your business. No one in business can afford to just give up any kind of aspect and turn over their responsibility to someone else and just let it run. It's the same thing for IT, and IT is traditionally, on average, the number 4 business expense within an organization. The information technology industry is broader than medical, legal, and financial altogether. There's no way that any individual organization can come to you and claim to do it all. Our industry is just like other professional industries, that its specialization is where you have to go to get any kind of performance. Other things are big brags that you're taking a risk on for someone that's saying that. And then on top of it, if you have outlandish accusations or premises that, hey, we'll turn you into a profit center, does that really ring true? Could you turn your accounting department into a profit center legally? None of those hold water, but they're all meant to give you this extra boost of anything you do will be guaranteed and will be lightning fast regardless. So how do you turn this around and make this some questions that you should ask, and how do you verify today who's really capable and not putting it at risk? Well, the industry is rolled over, and the concept is called vetted IT support. Now, this has nothing to do with a customer's organization or their approach. This is strictly for IT firms that do support directly for customers and have access to their data. Unfortunately, with the FTC, it's found that less than 10% of businesses, including regulated businesses, use vetted IT support. It's not a criteria that some institution has come up with or some form or I have developed. There's 5 components. 3 of them are government and 2 of them are industry. The first one is your state, and your state for vetted IT support is that you're a C corporation with a publicly published ownership and board. So it protects you from fraud, and it's not felons or foreign terrorists or competitors that are unknown that you're signing up for IT support and access to all of your data. The second is a value proposition, actually having federally registered trademarks and patents for what you do. If someone doesn't have that, then they really don't have a value proposition in their commodity products. The third one from government is actually doing the regulation compliance. So anybody that's doing vetted IT support should have publicly published their risk exam, their compliance verification form, and all this other information that I'm talking about as well. The other two are industry. I'm showing the Microsoft logo here. You don't have to be a Microsoft partner. There are obviously Cisco specialists. There are specialists in different industries and different manufacturers. But certification is a requirement. You can sign up with virtually any distributor or manufacturer at zero cost and use the logo. But again, that doesn't mean they're certified. If they are certified in a specialty, that also should be publicly published. And the last thing is, if they're really an expert, they should be recognized as an authority in the industry and actually have one or more published books. All of those together, those 5 things are vetted IT support. None of them have to do with paid advertising, and they all can be publicly verified at the Secretary of State, uspto.gov, the manufacturer, in this case Microsoft, and you can find Amazon or your favorite to verify their book. It should look something like this. People shouldn't have to ask for on demand. Anybody that's doing vetted IT support today should have published of, hey, here's our articles of incorporation that list our ownership and board members. Here's our patents and trademarks and how you look them up and what they entail. Here's our competency for what things we are certified for. Here's our books. And more importantly, here's all the registration, regulation compliance right here at a glance. You should be able to verify all those things up front with anybody that is a qualified provider. Now, today, the FTC and IRS, and then if you're in a regulated industry, any of your industry regulations apply. Most people don't understand that these are actually federal law. If you Google IRS security plan or FTC security plan, you will see that not only is law and that you can be fined, but it's required. Now, today, as of this minute, there is not a lot of teeth in these regulations, but it's growing. And I encourage all clients, you're at a disadvantage if you're competing with folks in your industry if they do these things and you don't. You may also not realize that this is being used against you. So at minimum, if you're dealing with any kind of IT firm, you should have a reciprocal non-disclosure agreement because they're going to have access to your data and they shouldn't be talking about it. They'll know things about you and your business that you don't want disclosed. Hopefully, they're also doing the reverse and that they're giving you access to tools and processes that you may not have seen before. Now, part of IRS security plan is having a vetted IT support partner and an agreement with that. Most of your agreements, you're better off if you do multi-year. Just for business planning, it's very difficult to do 1 year, 1 year agreements. It also doesn't make a lot of sense if you have a strategy that's going to last 3 to 5 years based upon the software licensing and the equipment you have. You can't get those things done in just a year. It's usually not feasible and doesn't make sense to completely change course and do something different. Any agreements should have performance based in them. They should have a probationary period. There should be a non-performance clause too, that if they simply are not performing in a specific criteria, then you can opt out, no harm, no foul, no penalty. And the biggest part that most people aren't doing today is they have no annually updated risk plan. So they have a group of IT folks, maybe internally or externally, They never investigate what their performance is, how they're measured. It's usually a vague sense of whether things are up or not. They don't provide any extra budget for those people to get trained and continually educated. And then, oh, by the way, while everybody else is on vacation or on holiday, IT is supposed to continue work regardless. So there's some built-in conflicts already. The simplest part of the security plan is that you just simply regularly train your people. And then the second part is you actually do a risk plan. And the third is you're working contracted with somebody that is working with a work plan to simply eliminate and get better as you go. And it shouldn't be about regulation compliance. It should be improving business for you and your customers. Now, the biggest question is price. I'm giving away a couple of secrets that the industry doesn't want you to know. So today, anybody who's a legitimate provider is doing flat costs for everything they do. The reason for that is the provider, if they're an expert, should be taking on the risk for the customer if there's unexpected issues, if things take longer. That should be on the provider. It shouldn't be something the customer has. Now, there are still hourly things like running cable and those type of processes that include manual labor. That it makes a lot of sense to pay hourly for. When there is an agreement for any kind of support, since most providers don't know and they simply go by what the manufacturer says, they do something like price by the user device. Well, it doesn't cost you per month to support staff, and you shouldn't be renting any equipment that you've already bought. You should have some performance criteria around it, a guaranteed response, regular SOP, the monitoring, auditing, all those things to help improve your business going forward. By device and by user is really simple, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't matter whether it's Bozeman, Montana, or New York City, the average hourly rate for unvetted support is somewhere around $100 to $125 an hour. Now, if you buy into all the gimmicks that are pushed towards you and the treacherous claims, many will try to go to 200 and 300. In fact, they will come to you and say, hey, Microsoft based their enterprise agreements based upon $225 a user for all their software. So that's what you need to pay me for support too. Some of those numbers just don't compute and don't match up. The biggest thing I like to teach clients to do is there are lots of salary surveys that come from all kinds of recruiting firms nationwide, and they dominate the IT industry, especially if you're looking for good IT candidates. But all of those are simply surveys. They're not real data. So the US government has a Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they publish annually by state what you should pay for a network admin. In Oklahoma, it's $67,500. Once you do FICA, SUTA, WUDA, CUDA, and do just a little bit of benefits, you're quickly at 30%. This is a number that you're looking at. And if you're looking at outside support and you're looking at any kind of contract, it should be a subset of that because they should come in less than what you could hire somebody for, and they should have more value for performance. And today, in mid-sized organizations, it's really common to have local IT support that are responsible for user help and high-end things, and then a vetted IT support that does not only your auditing and cybersecurity, but and documentation, all the other things that IT can't get to or needs help with. So if nothing else, start leaning on the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, not only for IT, but also for anything where you're comparing outsourced services. So to finish up, the dirty secret is our industry is unregulated. The big lie from Google and other big tech is about managed services, which truly is, for the people who are using that and don't know where it comes from, is about just selling you more stuff. Good questions are come from vetted IT support, not from throwaway of the number of customers and staff, because they don't really compute today and don't really tell you a whole lot. Ignore all the paid advertisements and great survey and awards. They really don't mean anything for what you're going to get. Same vein is ignore the results from bizarre claims, because there's no way to verify those. The 5 things again are C Corp with the board, trademarks and patents, regulation compliance is published authority with books, and everybody does a competency, but oftentimes they show the logo and they may not be certified even though they say they are. And lastly, definitely control your costs and have an agreement in place, because without an agreement, you have no cause for recourse of what you should get or what your performance should be. So in these challenging times, if you're using any kind of external IT support in any capacity, you need to start asking these 7 things, and are they vetted, and take some action upon that. Your next step is free for any participants that would like it. Simply put in the chat or let us know, and we will send you a free copy of the Competitive Advantage Playbook, which is an international #1 bestseller. And for those that would like it, we do 5 free system plans a year. And if you think it's a fit, we can schedule that as well. So at this point, I'll open up to any kind of questions. If you have if you like to put questions in the chat. And I've been following along. There haven't been any questions throughout. So I will end with this. Business is a dangerous game. Protect yourself at all times, and definitely want to control your destiny. I'm Kevin Freem. It's kfreem@matrixforce.com. If you go to Matrix Force, you can schedule a